Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. We have covered in this series background images where we can set the whole page to have an image in the background and then we can put text over the top of that. We've also dealt with having a background image for a single cell of a HTML table. But sometimes you will want to have text over an image and neither of those cases will apply. It's not, you don't want the image over the whole page, you only want it over part of the page. And you don't want to use HTML tables. The most likely reason being that in Twine, HTML tables seem to always have space between the cells. And sometimes you don't want space between the cells. Sometimes you want the different cells to form a single picture, so you need them to be right up next to each other. So in order to, if we wanted to do text over image without using a HTML table and without making it the background image of the whole page, we need a new technique, something that we haven't done. And what I've done here is an example with the wrong way to do it and the right way to do it. So we've got this picture, and I want to put this text, which is, in this case, it's just a quote from H.P. Lovecraft. It's from the beginning of Call of Cthulhu, actually. And I've done it the wrong way. And it says here, a single div. Div is a command that creates a paragraph. You can also use p, but I usually use div. So here's a sort of wrong way that I've done it, using a single div. You can see that the picture repeats, which is not what we want. We only want the picture to be there once, and we want the text to be within the boundaries of that image. And that neither of those things have happened. And then I've got a version that works, where, as you can see, the text is within the image, and the image is only displayed once. And there's a text here that says you need a div inside another div. And that is indeed how it works. You have a div command and then a slash div to indicate the end of the paragraph. But within that, we have another div and slash div. And that allows us to place the text over the image. So let's have a look at the code that allows this to happen. Sorry, that's not part of the code, it's just an example. So, what have I done? Accidentally, sorry. I accidentally deleted the whole passage when I meant to just delete this little example here. Okay, so let's look at the wrong way to do it first. So we've got div style equals quote. We've got a whole bunch of specifications for the style of the paragraph. Then we've got the text, and then we've got the slash div. So the style is laid out with what are we specifying? Colon, space, what is the value of that particular thing? And then if there's going to be another one, it's a semicolon. We need semicolons to separate the items. We could put a semicolon at the end, but I've chosen not to. If we put one at the end, it wouldn't make any difference. It would still execute properly. And it's probably better practice to just put semicolons all the time just so you don't get confused. But anyway, I chose not to do it. So we've got text-align, and that's set to center, which means that the text is, instead of being lined up in a column on the left, which is the default, called left justified, it is instead put into the middle. And we can see that that's worked. If we look down the sides of the text, we can see that there's not that straight line down the left, which is what there would be by default. You can also right justify it, which puts it all up to the right. There's at least one other one that's not used very often, but usually it's left justified, center, or right. Width 640px, which is pixels. Height 480px, which is again pixels. That is the size of the image that we're using as a background image. We can see that has not worked. The height has worked, but the width of this image is more than the size of one of these pictures, and as a result, actually, sorry, the height hasn't worked either. And as a result, it started to tile. That is, it started to repeat the image. Then we have background dash image. This is something this is a, what's the word? A format that we haven't encountered yet. Background dash image, colon, URL, bracket, single quote. Actually, sorry, I was mucking around before. There we go. Should be that. Parchment.jpg, end quote, and then an end bracket. Now, this is basically the same as you might remember when we do an image. We go square bracket, img, square bracket, and then we go the location and name of the file. So if it's in the same folder as the program, we might just put parchment.jpg. If there was an art folder and that's where it was, we'd put art/parchment.jpg, and so on. And this bit in here uses that same format. So if there was an art folder, and that's where the file we wanted was, and that folder was part of the folder that the program was in, that's what we do. We do art/parchment.jpg. But we do have to do this. We have to do that URL, and then we have to do the single quotes, and then the name and location. Oops. And then an end bracket. And then if we're going to do another specification within this style part of the div command, then we put a semicolon. Then we say color black. Color refers to the color of the text, because of course by default text is white, but because this is so light, white text would look, if you imagine that text on this background, it would be very hard to read. So instead we change it to black. And then padding 50px. And what that padding does is it means that the text doesn't go right up to the edges. It means that it has a padding, or like a margin basically, of 50 pixels to the left and the right and the top. Now, if we wanted, we can be more specific, and I've got the note down here that says if you don't want it to say padding, you can say padding dash top, padding dash bottom, padding dash right, and or padding dash left, and that will specify the margins, but only for that particular side of the text. But unfortunately, that hasn't worked. The padding has seems like the padding has sort of blown out the size of the picture. But then if we had no padding, then this text would go right up to the edge, and it would start right at the top, and it would start right on the left-hand side. And because this picture, it's a bit hard to see, but the picture has black edges, there'd be a lot of writing that would be hard to read. You basically couldn't read the first line, and you couldn't really read anything on the far left or the far right. So you're in a bit of a bind. But the way you do it is you have two divs, one inside the other. So we have div style, text align center, width 640 pixels, height 480 pixels, background image or background dash image, URL bracket, single quote parchment.jpg, single quote end bracket, and there we have a semicolon at the end. So as you can see, it's pretty arbitrary. We didn't have one there. We do have one there. It works fine either way. Then we have another div, and in that other div, in the inner div, we have style equals color black, padding 50 pixels. We could move this color thing up to here, but I thought that it made more sense to have it in here, because this inner div is sort of to do with the text, and because this color command is to do with the color of the text, I thought it would make more sense to have it there. But and then we have the quote, and then we have /div and /div. And so doing it that way will allow you to put padding on the text. The text will be a little bit in from the sides, but adding that padding won't change the size of the the display that has the background image. So therefore it will display it'll display the entire picture, but it won't display anything more than that. And of course the point of this is that often you might have a picture with different text that might be on it. So you might have, let's say it's a game where you can find written notes. You might have a single image for a written note and then different text for the different clues that you find. You could do a separate picture and type the text into the picture for every single clue, but that's obviously going to take more time, and it's harder to change. If you decide that you want the clue to be something else, you need to just go back and do the picture from scratch. You can't just edit one word, because the text has sort of become part of the picture. It's not saved as text, it's just saved as the pixels. And so you have to start from scratch, even if you just want to change one or two words. You notice you have a spelling mistake or something like that. I got into this because I was trying to work out how to display card game files, because that's what we've been working on recently. The series is card games, and often in collectible card games you will have a standard design for the card, and then it'll have different text down the bottom. And so I was trying to do an equivalent of the bottom of a card where we have the one image and we keep showing that image, but we can show different text over it, depending on what card we're displaying. And that was why I realized that I didn't have a way of doing this other than using HTML. Other than using HTML tables, or of course doing a background image for the whole page, which won't really work. So that's how you do that. There doesn't seem to be an easy way to get it to vertically center. In other words, if we wanted it, like this starts basically from the top, and we might want it to automatically center itself, so it starts about here and ends about here. You can increase the top padding, but then that might not be right for each message. If the message is longer or shorter, the amount of top padding you'll need to get it into the center vertically is going to be different. And there doesn't seem to be an easy way to automatically align it in that direction. There is a difficult way, but it used a lot of CSS, defining CSS properties and stuff, and I would rather find a simpler way if there is one. But for most purposes, this will be probably good enough. You can use, that's a bit of a pain, because there is an easy way to vertically align text within a HTML cell, but that way doesn't work when we try and use it in one of these divs inside another div, unfortunately. But, this will be good enough for most purposes. So I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you'll tune in next time.